Hi everyone. This video provides the lecture for week 5 of Theories of Career Development. This lecture focuses on Super's model as it's outlined in Chapter 9 on late adolescence and adult career development. Last week we bundled together Chapters 7 and 8, which were on child and early adolescent career development. And we don't normally work with that demographic, those particular groups, but there were some concepts that are proposed in those parts of his model which we needed to look at, and which you'll see will come up again as we look at late adolescence and adult career development in this presentation. So just to kind of give you an overview of Super's lifespan theory, and remember this is distinct from trait and factor theories like Parson and Holland and work adjustment theory. So Super's theory looks at life from the whole perspective, and two important concepts in his model are life roles and life stages, and we'll explore some of those in just a moment. Another important concept in his model is the idea of salience, which is just another way of saying importance of roles, can be seen by a person's participation in, commitment to, and knowledge of a role, and how much that role or activity is valued. And we'll come back to that concept in a moment. The concept of career maturity was introduced last week in the lecture video, and it is still relevant as we get into adolescence and adulthood, and in fact is even more relevant because we want clients to have good knowledge of self, a good understanding of themselves, their personality, values, and so on, and then have a good understanding of the world of work, and then be able to match those two things together effectively, so they're targeting work that is a good fit for them. So in a nutshell, that's what career maturity is about. And a lot of the work that we do with our clients is to help improve or develop their career maturity. And in fact, some people don't develop it until later in life. This may be because of limited opportunities. They may have gotten into a career early in their life, and it provided good financial security, and now they've got established security in that role and are reluctant to give it up. So they maybe never had a chance to really develop their sense of what would I really like to do? What do I really value? What's a good fit for me? So we may be helping clients even later in life to develop that career maturity. And Super says that roles form the context from which to look at four basic career development stages. And so these stages are exploration, establishment, maintenance, and disengagement. We'll be going through all of those and unpacking those a little bit in this presentation. One major aspect of the theory that is important for you to really embed in your mind is that the person, the client, may cycle through these stages any number of times in their life. So you see as we work through them that they generally happen often at certain times of life, but there are many points in which people can cycle through these stages again and again. So what I'd like you to do is to just take a moment and watch a brief video that outlines the different stages, provides a nice, clear, short explanation of them, and then we'll unpack them a bit more. You can't click on this link that you see on the screen, but the link is posted under week 5, so you can go to that part of the D2L content and access this directly. So please go and watch this short video and then come back to this lecture. So now you've seen in the little video the different major life roles that Super outlines. And again, just want to emphasize that people can cycle into and out of these roles at any stage of their life. So, homemaker has kind of an old-fashioned connotation, but it refers to anybody working to take care of their home and their family. And most people do that role if they live in any kind of communal setting with other individuals where there's tasks to be done. Laundry has to be done, dishes have to be washed, so on and so forth. So anything that has to do with taking care of the home. Worker, of course, is working in your job, your paid employment. Citizen refers to community service. Now, some people may be more committed to that role than others, but in some ways, we all do community service. For example, if we pay our taxes, or if we go out one day and see there's garbage strewn out on the road, some a bag broke open or something fell over, we might take a few minutes to help clean that up. And of course, there's all kinds of volunteer things that can be done in the community. Leisure right is, of course, activities that are leisure. I think we all wish that role was expanded a bit more in our own lives, but anything that you do that you might consider to be fun. Being a student, of course, studying, the standard view is that it's young people that are students, that we expect, if someone's even doing a college or university diploma, at some point they will finish that and go on to work. But we can see now that people at any stage of life can go back to school. And of course, all of you are illustrating that because most of you are here studying after having careers in other fields. And then child refers to not necessarily child rearing yourself, but to being a child. You may have elder care responsibilities or even just general commitments to one's family to participate in family events and that sort of thing. So these are major life roles that most people do participate in, but keeping in mind that some people maybe never had the chance to be a student. Some people maybe were in the foster care system and didn't really have what we would see as the standard childhood experience. So we need to be mindful that these roles are not prescriptive in nature, that everybody must or should be participating in these kind of roles. And you'll see a diagram on page 233 of the textbook, which reproduces what you saw in the short video that lays all of these out. Now, I encourage you to just pause here for a moment and think about those major life roles and to create a pie chart showing the percentage of time that you spend in your life on each of these roles. It can sometimes be helpful to get a sense of how you might be in or out of balance. Sometimes that's out of necessity. So, for an example, this is someone who is clearly spending a great deal of their time working. They spend the second largest chunk of their time taking care of their home and their family. They allocate some time for leisure, and then this might mean that they have elder care responsibilities. So, as a child, they are maybe taking care of one or more parents who are not well. Now, I didn't include the other roles there, but if someone was going back to school, if you were doing this pie chart, obviously you'd want to include something for studying, and if you're doing a community service, you would want to include that. So I encourage you just to take a moment now and just take a piece of paper and draw a little circle and see how your life stacks up in all of these areas. And again, it's not that you should be doing something in each one of these areas, but just having a little, getting an overview of how you are spending most of your time and maybe consider, is there some room here for this person to add a little bit more leisure time in their life? So I mentioned a few minutes ago the idea of the indicators of salience or the concept of salience. These are the indicators that we look at when we are trying to determine if a role does have salience for a client. So there are four indicators here. Participation focuses on the individual's actual behavior. How much time are they spending on doing something? How much are they actually allocating time on their pie chart to a particular activity? Commitment, feeling proud of that involvement and or making future plans to be involved. So commitment could, think about commitment to your program, the program you're taking right now. Do you feel proud of that? Do you feel excited when you think about the future? That's an indication that the program may be quite salient for you. And your participation, of course, you're already participating in it. Some of you are actually working in the field. Knowledge is another indicator. An individual, a role is likely to be salient to them if they are acquiring knowledge about the role by experiencing it directly or observing it, going out and seeking information about the role. So before you committed to come to our program, you might have talked to somebody in the field or done some research on being a CDP, and that was all about acquiring knowledge. And then values expectation. How well does a role fit with the individual's values? And you'll see in a moment that there are a number of values within a SUPERS model. So a value for you could be that you really want to make a difference and you want to help people. So how well does the CDP role fit for that value for you. I think it probably fits pretty well. So it's important to know these indicators because in the assignment on the case study, you're going to be answering a question about this. You're going to consider all of these indicators of salience when you analyze the salience of the client's previous work role. You're going to think about, is the client participating in it now? Do they feel committed to it? Do they feel proud of being involved in that role? Are they acquiring knowledge about it actively now? And how well does it fit with their values? So those are all the indicators you need to consider in deciding if a role is salient. And if the indicators are all very low for a client in a particular role, that's a clear clue that that role is not very salient to them. Whether or not they can actually take steps to get out of it now is a different question. But it's important to understand that that can really lead to a lot of dissatisfaction in one's work when all of these indicators are low. So I just want to pause for a moment and say a little bit more about the value expectations, because this is where we can look at Super's model. The value expectation, of course, examines how well the roles match with the individual's value needs. And as I indicated a moment ago, many values are related to career issues. If a role is not fulfilling a person's values, that can often lead to dissatisfaction. The value scale in Super's model lists 21 different values. There are many other tools available for examining values. And let me just say here that you're going to explore what values actually are a bit more when you are doing your Common Assessment Model and other courses. You'll be talking a lot about what values are about. So if you're having trouble kind of getting your head wrapped around that idea, you'll have a chance to unpack that a bit more in other courses. But it can be very valuable to assess the values important to the client and which values expectations are met by current or potential roles. So these are all the values listed in Super's model. This is on pages 236 to 237 of the Sharp text. It'll give you a bit more interaction, or sorry, a bit more description of each one. But think about things like social interaction. That's how much you interact with other people. That's certainly something that some people talk about. Some people want to be interacting with people a lot all day. Other people don't. The value that I mentioned previously about wanting to make a difference and wanting to help people, that relates to the value of altruism. So you might find it interesting to read through these descriptions and just see what your values seem to be, which ones pop out for you from this list. So Super talks about the adult life stages and substages, and these are essential and core to Super's theory. And the stages are both age-related and not age-related. As I indicated previously, there are typical times when people go through the stages, but it's possible for a person to go through any stage at any time in his or her life. It's really important that you hold on to that idea as you're working with these stages. So the exploration stage generally ranges from 15 to 25 years of age. It includes the efforts that people are making to gather occupational information, to choose career alternatives, decide on occupations, and start to work. Now, this should be based on that who am I knowledge, that the individual should have had a chance to do some exploration or some understanding of what their best skills, strengths, and interests are. The exploration stage includes 3 substages: crystallizing, specifying, and implementing. So crystallizing is where people clarify what they want to do. They learn about entry-level jobs, how they might get into a field, what skills are required by the jobs that interest them. And having work experience and work knowledge can help the person narrow down their choices. Again, it's important to recognize that a person may recycle through this substage in subsequent career changes and transitions. And you yourself may have gone through this as you were trying to decide if you were going to do the CDP program or if you were trying to decide between several different programs. Crystallizing is about making it clear, making it concrete. Then the next stage is specifying within exploration, a substage. This is where you need to specify your preferences in order to find an occupation, job, or employer. So you may have narrowed it down to several different CDP programs as you were trying to decide, where do I want to go to get my training. Or people may have to specify their preferences in order to choose additional education. And sometimes people have to specify a job within an occupation. Now, career development practitioner, covers a lot of different, let me just rephrase that. It covers a general core of activities, but there are different branches within that. So someone could be a, um, a job developer, or they could be a specialized as being a workshop facilitator, or some kind of an assessment coordinator. It's different types of occupations or different types of jobs within the occupation people can branch off into. So they might, in fact, have to make those additional choices. And then the third stage in substage is implementing. This is the last phase prior to working. This is where people really get down to making plans to fulfill their career objectives. They choose their program, they register, and they start school. You're in the stage of implementing right now. Clients may start networking, writing resumes, going to interviews, and so on. So that's the exploration stage. And although it happens in later teen and early adulthood years, it also happens to many people when they are making transitions and possibly changing to new careers. Then Super talks about the second stage of establishment as ranging generally from 25 to 45. This refers to getting established in one's work by starting a job that's likely to mean the formal start of your working life. Most of us can point to when we started our real working life. We may have had, I had all kinds of part-time jobs when I was a teenager in my early 20s, but eventually I finished all my education and started working directly in the career development field. So most of us can identify that point where we got what people might think of as a real job or an adult job. It may mean working in a job or occupation that will probably be steady for many years. It meant that more in the past than it does now because changing labor market patterns like precarious work, the gig economy, are having a big impact on this. But generally, people in the establishment stage will stick with the same type of work for a long period of time. There are 3 substages in establishment: stabilizing, settling down in the job, being able to meet the job requirements. So you get hired and now you're working and you're trying to, kind of get acclimated. You may be feeling apprehensive about whether they have the skills needed to stay and work in the long term. So, there's still some doubts at this stage of things. But as individuals become more comfortable, they start to consolidate their position and feel confident in their work. So consolidating is the third substage of establishment. This is referring to becoming more comfortable in one's work, wanting to be seen as a dependable producer who's competent and can be relied upon by others. Most people want that in their work. They want to be seen as competent. They want their managers and others to know that they can do the job well. So that's the consolidating substage. And then advancing usually occurs after stabilizing and consolidating. It means moving ahead into a position of more responsibility with higher pay. The person may be thinking about how to move ahead, may want their superiors to know what they do well and can handle more responsibility. Now, some people don't have ambitions in that way or are in positions that don't allow them to advance. And certainly as organizations get flatter and there's more downsizing and layoffs and fewer opportunity to get ahead in those good jobs, this stage sometimes may not take place for some individuals. And then Super talks about the maintenance stage. It's usually from 45 to 65 years of age. The person's not advancing, but they are maintaining their status at work. So you may have had a period, I certainly can see, in my full-time years as a teacher where I was in that role for a really long time. I maintained my status. I certainly continued to update myself, but I was in that role for a very, very long time. Of course, it can vary with physical abilities, company policies, personal finances, and motivation. Some people, can keep on moving, or they sense that downsizing and layoffs may be coming, so they decide to jump ship in advance and maybe even change careers. The substages in this stage of holding, updating, and innovating can be found in many different sequences. So holding refers to the person being successful in their work and concerned with holding on to their position. They may have to learn new things to continue to do the work. They may feel threatened by early retirement or layoff, motivating them to try to maintain their position. Updating, holding may not be enough in some fields. So this stage refers to needing continuing education to maintain one's position. Now, sometimes people may, in fact, seek that out themselves, take educational programs, professional development, meet people who can help update skills and knowledge in one's field. This was very important to me all the time that I was teaching. Nobody mandated that I had to learn new skills, that I had to learn how to teach online, or that I had to pick up AI. But if you're paying attention to the trends in your field, you can see where things are going and take steps to update your skills really before they're needed. And then innovating is about making progress in one's profession. More than about learning or updating, it's about making new contributions to one's field. So I was fortunate that I was able to do that and being involved with the establishment of certification in Ontario in our field. You may yourself already be part of certain groups or doing volunteer work if you're working in the field. But once you graduate and you are working in the field, you'll see that there are many opportunities to make contributions to the field, and it might involve finding new ways to improve one's work. Then lastly, Super talks about the disengagement stage, and this is often seen as a stage for older adults, but for some people it can occur earlier. Sometimes people need to disengage because physical limitations no longer allow them to continue their work or because of company policies about retirement. I think there are fewer places where, and I'm not sure if it's even legal at this point, to insist that people retire at 65. And fewer older adults are following this pattern, sometimes by choice. There are 3 substages in disengagement of decelerating, retirement planning, and retirement living. But I want to just introduce, this is not part of Super's model. There's also a new concept that people are talking about of rewiring rather than retiring. And I like to think that that's what I'm doing at this stage of my life. So the 3 disengagement substages: decelerating is about slowing down one's work responsibilities, maybe finding easier ways to do work or working less. Sometimes people draw away from work, or they just want to avoid some of those pressures in their later years. Then people may get into retirement planning. Most people start planning for retirement in their later years. Often, it's really the case we should start earlier than most of us do. And they may engage in financial planning and looking at new activities to take the place of work. And people can go through the stage of crystallization all over again as they start to think about how might I want to reinvent myself in my rewirement years. If we get to full-on retirement in the their late 60s, people may experience changes in life roles. They may choose to make changes in life roles. Sometimes physical aspects come into play and health issues become relevant, and people end up having to make changes for that reason. Leisure, home and family, and community service may take on more importance and salience. Important aspects in this substage include where one lives, one's friends, and use of free time. And good health is often a key factor, of course, in satisfactory retirement and how much people can be engaged in some of these other activities. Super also talked about the concept of recycling. So this was revolutionary as part of his theory. He recognized that many people do not follow these life stages in a neat order. Many people reassess their career path at different times of their lives and recycle through various stages. They re-enter the exploration stage and may reassess their values, interests, and capacities. May even for the first time in their life get in touch with their values and their interests, as maybe they weren't allowed to do that in earlier years. Just a couple of thoughts before we finish this lecture off, that you need to be aware that issues can arise if you and the client are in very different life stages. So you're, at the beginning of your shiny new career as a CDP, you're in the establishment stage and you're all about getting more training and more updating and, moving ahead, and the client is in disengagement. So it's important to recognize I've talked about this idea before, being where the client is. So, or not, I'm going to jump down to this point here, not making assumptions about where the client should be because they're of a certain age. The counselor can use the knowledge of stages to understand what the client may be experiencing. So what you want to look at in Super's model is what stage seems to match with the client, not what age are they at. And it's also important to account for cultural differences and expectations, and again, avoid assumptions about where a client should be, especially assumptions like seeing someone at the age of 65. This does not necessarily equal retirement, or seeing them as less productive or effective. So very important that you be aware of all of those kinds of issues. So thanks very much for watching. And again, don't hesitate to let me know if you have any questions at all.